A few months ago, I was trying to heal from a breakup. I thought maybe exploring local cemeteries would help. I was a freelance photographer and I needed to expand my portfolio. Quiet, forgotten places always called to me, so it made sense to visit. I found myself at an old cemetery, standing in front of a rusted gate. It was cracked and slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The air was still, shaded by ancient trees. I snapped photos of broken gravestones, feeling peaceful. Then I noticed something on one of the graves. It was a child's toy, bright and out of place. I squinted, wondering how it got there. Maybe someone left it, I thought. I pressed on, ignoring it. Weeks passed and I kept returning. Each time, the toy seemed to have moved. It was always on a different grave. I shook my head, telling myself it was just my imagination. But then I started seeing shadows flit between the tombstones. They darted out of sight. I thought maybe it was just the light playing tricks on me. Sometimes a faint melody would carry through the air, whispers inviting me deeper into the cemetery. It gave me chills. One afternoon, I wandered further than before. The shadows danced just beyond my vision. I paused, gripping my camera tightly. My heart raced, and I felt cold. I glanced around, scanning the area. Was someone watching me? I hesitated, but pressed on, curious about what I'd find. In the distance, I saw the toy again. This time, a tiny shoe lay beside it. It wasn't there before. My breath caught in my throat. I crept closer, panic rising inside me. I was sure I hadn't imagined any of this, but I felt like reality was slipping away. I wanted to learn its story. Just then, I heard a rustle behind me. I jumped and turned quickly. Nothing was there. I felt a tight grip in my chest. Maybe I should leave, I thought. But curiosity drew me closer. As I moved back toward the grave, anxiety filled me. I wanted answers. That's when I heard the music again, louder this time. A child's laughter echoed faintly. I felt a presence and looked up. There was a shadowy figure behind the trees, just out of sight. "Who are you?" I called out, but my voice sounded small. I got no response. It was all quiet again. I don't know how long I stood there, waiting. I scanned the ground for the toy. It was gone. Then a soft voice whispered, "Come play with me." I shivered and turned around. Nobody was there. All at once, the warmth of the afternoon vanished. The shadows grew longer, and I felt small, lost in the cemetery. Looking back, I still can't shake the feeling that something watched me. To this day, I can't explain why that day left me shaken. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling from my last visit. I wanted answers, but I was terrified. Should I go back? Part of me screamed no, but a stronger pull drove me to return to that cemetery. As I approached the now familiar gate, the chill in the air wrapped around me. I hesitated, then pushed it open. This time, the shadows felt heavier, as if they were waiting for me. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The silence was deafening, broken only by the crunch of leaves underneath my shoes. I followed the worn path past the twisting trees. The place felt different. Each time I visited, it seemed to shift. My heart raced as I recalled the soft voice beckoning me, still echoing in my mind. The earlier anxiety returned, but I forced myself to look around. Once again, I saw the toy. It brightened the grave of a child, its colors startling against the dull stone. Next to it sat the tiny shoe, still there. I knelt beside them, my hands trembling. Then something caught my eye. A small, faded photograph stuck to the grave marker. Carefully, I peeled it from where it clung. Dust floated off, revealing a picture of a girl with bright eyes and a wide smile. An eeriness washed over me. I flipped it over, but there was no name, just the date, over 60 years ago. Why is this here? I muttered to myself.
Then I heard the laughter again. It felt closer this time, like a whisper wrapping around me. I stood up quickly, heart pounding. "Is anyone there?" My voice quivered as I scanned the area, but once again, silence reigned. Suddenly, movement from the corner of my eye drew my attention. I turned sharply and caught a glimpse of that shadowy figure darting behind a massive oak tree. Panic clawed at me, but I was too curious to back down. Against my better judgment, I moved forward. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Please, I just want to talk." There was no response, only the rustling of leaves. I took another step, my breath hitching as the shadows deepened. Then I realized I couldn't see the sun anymore. The world dimmed around me. My heart raced as I felt an overwhelming sense of being surrounded. I took one more step, and the laughter erupted again, clearer and closer. It was like the sound of joy mingled with something darker. "Come play with me." The voice was more insistent now. It was chilling. The air turned heavy. I stumbled backward, lost for direction. Out of nowhere, the toy flew through the air and landed at my feet. I flinched, falling back against the old gravestone. I was petrified. Then I saw it. The figure stepped into view. It was a little girl, her hair flowing around her like wisps of smoke. Her smile was wide, but her eyes were hollow. "I'm ready to play," she said, reaching out toward me. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. In that instant, I knew I had to leave. I turned, my feet suddenly moving without thinking. I sprinted away from the grave, dodging shadows that seemed to reach for me. I burst through the gate, breathless and trembling, but the laughter followed, echoing behind me. I had to get away. But in my gut, I knew I couldn't leave it like this. That's when I heard the girl's voice again, clearer now. "You can't escape me." I ran until my lungs burned, my feet pounding the pavement. The cemetery gate loomed behind me, the laughter still echoing in my ears. I didn't stop until I reached my car, fumbling with the keys as my hands still shook. I slumped into the driver's seat, trying to catch my breath. What just happened? I felt that I had stepped into something I couldn't understand, yet the nagging urge to return gnawed at me. I gripped the steering wheel, wrestling with what I had seen. The girl's hollow eyes and wide smile haunted me. Did she want to play, or was she trying to warn me? After a moment, I started the car and drove away, but my mind raced. I thought about the photograph I had found. The girl in it had to be connected to the cemetery. If only I could find out more about her. Back home, I quickly grabbed my laptop, searching for any records related to the dates on the photograph. I focused on the year, 1960. It felt crucial, yet I couldn't figure out why. Names, obituaries, and newspaper archives blurred together as I scrolled. But then one headline caught my eye. "Tragic loss of local girl shakes community." My heart raced as I read the article. A child named Lily had gone missing in the very area where I had been. They never found her. Instead, the article detailed how her disappearance haunted the town. I stared at the date and the photos. They looked so similar to the girl in the photograph I had held. I needed to know more. I gathered my courage and called the local historical society. A kind woman on the other end agreed to meet me. "Lily's story is one we never forget," she said. "We still have her belongings." Chills ran down my spine. What did she mean by that? When I arrived at the society, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. The building was old, filled with dusty boxes and worn-down artifacts. The woman greeted me and led me to a small room. "We have some items from Lily," she explained, pulling out a few boxes. My heart raced as she opened the first one. Inside lay a faded dress and a small stuffed bear, its fur matted. As I touched the bear, I felt an icy shiver crawl up my spine. Did you find anything else? Perhaps a diary or letters? I asked, my voice quaking. The woman hesitated. There are whispers, rumors, that something happened to her after she lost a special toy. Some say she still looks for it. That was it, the toy. My mind raced back to the vibrant toy I had seen at her grave. A small voice nudged at me, urging to connect the dots. Where did you find these? I asked urgently. Near her last known whereabouts, she replied. That grave over by Willow Oak? I could feel my blood run cold. It was the same tree where I had seen the girl, the same voices calling me. I was being drawn into something. Just then, the power flickered in the older building. I glanced at the woman, confusion in her eyes. Then, darkness enveloped us, and I felt an icy breath on my neck. Who's there? I barely whispered, my heart pounding as the shadows thickened around us. Then the girl's voice echoed in my mind, clearer and more confrontational. You came to play, didn't you? I stood frozen in the dark, the musty scent of the room filling my lungs. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the whispers around me. The woman, I could barely see her face now, seemed to be equally unnerved. Is someone there? She called out, her voice shaky. The silence felt heavy, like an unseen weight pressing down on us. My fingers twitched as I reached for my phone. I needed light. I needed to see. I flipped it on, the glow cutting through the darkness, revealing dust particles that danced in the air. But it also illuminated the woman's wide eyes, filled with a mix of fear and something else, a form of understanding. Lily? I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I could say her name aloud. Something felt different, more intense. The air grew colder, and a faint chill swept across my skin. Then I heard it, a soft giggle rippling through the darkness. I swung my phone around, scanning the small room for signs of movement. Who's there? I shouted, my heart drumming in my chest. I wished I could turn back time and stay away from the cemetery. Suddenly, the phone slipped from my hand, crashing to the floor. The light flickered violently, illuminating a dark corner of the room. An outline shifted, and I caught a glimpse of her. Lily. There she was, standing just beyond reach, her little dress swaying as if caught in a breeze that didn't exist. "Come play with me," she sang, her voice sweet yet haunting. My throat went dry as cold dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I stepped back, instinctively putting distance between us. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, trembling. It sounded feeble, but it was all I could muster. The woman beside me gasped, but I didn't take my eyes off Lily. The girl's hollow eyes bore into me. "You don't have to be scared. I like to play," she said with that unsettling smile, tilting her head unnaturally. There was something incredibly wrong about the way she looked at me. A part of me wanted to reach out, but every rational thought screamed for caution. This was not just a little girl. She was something else entirely. "Lily, is that your name?" I questioned softly, hoping to soothe the strange tension building in the air. She nodded slowly, but then a frown crossed her lips. "You need to find my toy. It's not here," she said, a trace of urgency in her childlike voice. "Where is it?" I pressed, desperation creeping into my tone. "Can't tell. You must come find me," she replied, and her form began to flicker. My stomach dropped as the shadows around her seethed like angry waves. Just then, the lights blinked back to life, the hum of electricity filling the space. But when they did, she was gone. "Where did she go?" I whispered, panic flooding my veins. The woman beside me seemed frozen in place, eyes darting around the room as if expecting Lily to strike again. I don't know," she stammered. "That was different." I felt a pull inside, a call to discover what happened to Lily's toy and why she wanted me to find it.
but the thought of interacting with her again sent chills down my spine. As we stood there, I remembered the grave. What if I could find answers buried beneath the soil at Willow Oak? In that moment, I knew I had to go back. I had to confront whatever had happened. I grabbed my phone, my decision made. Not knowing what I would face next filled me with dread, but the potential to uncover the truth felt irresistible. We had to leave. I was going back to the cemetery where the shadows lived. As I stepped boldly towards the exit, I could already hear the whispers returning, echoing my resolve. I hardly slept that night. I tossed and turned, visions of Lily's shadowy figure and her eerie smile looping in my mind. The moments we shared felt woven into my very being, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she needed me. I wasn't just going back out of curiosity. I had to uncover what had happened. Morning crept in slowly, sunlight spilling through my window, but failing to chase away the chill that clung to my bones. I dressed in a daze, the weight of my decision settling heavily on my shoulders. I didn't speak as I prepared to leave. Rather, I loitered in the living room, running my fingers along the coffee table, waiting for thoughts to clear. When I finally made my way to Willow Oak Cemetery, the air was thick with tension. The stones loomed like sentinels, tall and imposing, each one harboring its own stories and perhaps secrets. I didn't even want to think about what I'd find, or if I would encounter Lily again. I parked just outside the gates and took a deep breath. The smell of damp earth and grass filled my senses. Each step toward the cemetery felt deliberate. Part of me hoped Lily would be waiting, while another part dreaded what might happen if she was. As I moved through the rows of graves, I tried to remember where I had seen her last. Should I start at her grave? Could I find it? But each headstone looked the same, weathered by time, some adorned with flowers that spoke of love and loss. Then I spotted it, a small, shabby plot that seemed different from the rest. The name Lily was etched into the stone, hardly visible beneath layers of dirt. My heart raced. I knelt down, brushing my fingers across the stones, feeling a surge of energy thrumming beneath my fingertips. I needed answers, but the ground held its secrets tight. Suddenly, I heard it again, the sound of a giggle. I spun around, recognizing that lilting tone. "Find my toy!" The voice echoed, surrounding me. My heart raced. "Where are you?" I shouted, hoping she would appear again. I felt lightheaded, a mix of fear and anticipation coursing through me. "Dig," she called, her voice weaving through the trees. "Dig and play." I glanced around, searching for any sign of the woman from the previous night. She was nowhere to be found. Gathering my courage, I reached for a hand shovel I had stashed in my bag, the one I thought would only be for garden work. With each scoop of dirt, I felt like a criminal, disturbing the resting place of someone who once lived. But that voice wouldn't leave my head. Whatever was buried here seemed to pull me closer. Just as doubt crept into my mind, my shovel struck something hard. I paused, holding my breath. My heart raced, pounding in sync with the whispers around me. That's when I saw it, a faded pink box peeking through the dirt. But there was something wrong. The box wasn't just dirty, it felt wrong, like it was holding more than just a toy. I gripped it tightly and pulled. Something deep within me screamed to stop, but curiosity won. As I lifted the box, a feeling of dread washed over me. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, as if warning me. Unbeknownst to me, as I pulled the box free, shadows began to gather behind me. The box slid from my hands as a chill rushed over me. I stumbled back, my heart in my throat. The giggling had stopped, but the shadows behind me seemed to pulse with anger. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach, and signaled my fear with a shaky intake of breath. At first, I saw nothing but the inky darkness, but as I squinted, figures began to shape themselves, emerging from the shadows like smoke. They were indistinct, their forms bending and curling unnaturally. I couldn't tell if they were truly there or merely a figment of my frayed nerves. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a...
The air felt thick, pressing against my chest, and the whispers morphed into a dissonant chorus, some angry, others forlorn. I glanced back at the box, worry clawing at my chest. What had I unleashed? A single thought echoed in my mind. I should have never dug it up. In that moment, a figure stepped forward, its features still unclear. It moved toward me, slow and deliberate. "Play?" it questioned in a sing-song voice, mimicking Lily. My pulse quickened, torn between fleeing and confronting whatever this was. "Where's my toy?" Caught off guard, I felt the ground shift beneath me as unseen forces tugged at my instincts. "I don't have it," I stammered, my eyes wide. "I'm not playing." The shadows grew larger, their condensed energy sucking the warmth from the air. As panic gripped me, I turned to flee, but my legs felt stuck in place, as though the earth had claimed me as its own. This wasn't just the cemetery anymore. It had become a different realm, filled with forgotten souls. Then I remembered the box. "This?" I called out hesitantly, holding it aloft like an offering. "Is this what you want?" The eyes in the shadowy figures seemed to intensify, focusing on me as if drawn by light. With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside, I found an assortment of broken toys, scattered remnants of a child's play. But something else caught my eye. A small, crumpled piece of paper tucked in the corner. I pulled it out, heart racing. The figures grew more restless, circling me, their low murmurs pulsing like a heartbeat. I unfolded the paper, and as I read, my stomach dropped. It bore a drawing of Lily, smiling brightly, but beneath it, words scratched hastily. "Help me." The shadows recoiled, as if they felt the weight of the words. They seemed to tremble, the sorrow and anger mixing into a tempest of shadowy forms. Everything began to swirl around me, and I had to act fast before they claimed me too. "Lily needs help," I shouted, forcing the words to be heard above the chaos. I couldn't understand what it meant yet, but there was urgency in my voice. The figures hushed, glaring at the paper in my hand. I was caught between two worlds, the living and the lost. And suddenly, I knew I had to find a way to give voice to Lily's plea. But before I could think of my next move, the shadows lunged forward, and everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness consumed me. It wasn't just a lack of light. It felt like something was pressing down, squeezing the air from my lungs. I staggered, fighting against an unseen force. I probably should have screamed, but my voice was lost in the void. Then it hit me, a cold sensation, like icy fingers brushing against my arms. I shivered and fought back the urge to bolt. I couldn't let fear control me now. It was time to
stand my ground. Whatever was happening, I needed to confront it. Just as suddenly as the darkness had swallowed me, I was thrust back into the cemetery, the world around me reassembling. The figures stood as looming shadows, their faces still vague, but their intentions clearer now. Standing tall, I held the crumpled paper up like a shield. "Lily needs help!" I shouted again, this time louder, more convincing. The air thickened, charged with a strange energy. I couldn't shake the feeling that my words had some power. The figures paused, their movements stuttering, as if the very essence of their existence hung on that plea. That's when I saw it. In the center of the swirling mass, a light flickered, a dim glow that pulsed in sync with my heartbeat. The shadows seemed to waver in its presence, drawing back slightly, as if afraid. I took a cautious step toward it, my instincts screaming at me to be careful. "Lily?" I whispered, hoping the light would somehow grant back the innocence that had been stolen. "Play?" The sing-song voice returned, this time with a tinge of pain mixed with desperation. The shadows rearranged themselves, revealing a pair of haunting eyes that shone brighter than anything else in the cemetery. "Where's my toy?" it repeated, now filled with urgency, almost pleading. I could feel the sorrow behind those words, and I realized it wasn't just a simple game to them. They were trapped in their own memories, their existence tied to the past. "I don't have it," I shouted, my voice shaking. "But I can help you. Tell me what you want." I needed answers, something to understand this mess I had stumbled into. Suddenly, the figure surged back, the anger boiling over. They closed the gap between us, and I felt the chill wrap around my ankles, pulling me toward the darkness again. Panic bubbled within me. What if they took me too? But just as I was about to lose hope, a deep voice broke through the chaos. "You are not lost, child," it boomed, resonating through every inch of the cemetery. "Make a choice." The crowd of shadows halted. Wait, a choice? What did that mean? I felt my heart race, grappling with the weight of the moment. I had to decide quickly, before the shadows snuffed me out entirely. "Choose to help her," the voice urged, echoing with a familiar warmth. It didn't sound threatening. Instead, it offered comfort. With a deep breath, I concentrated. "I will help you find your toy," I declared, my voice steady. The words flowed out more naturally than I expected, fueled by the urge to save Lily. The shadows wavered, but some still lingered with a malevolent intent. Before I could react, a beam of light shot through the mass, illuminating a small hill at the edge of the cemetery. "Go," the shadows murmured, revealing a glimmer of hope in their twisted forms. But as I began to walk toward the light, the earth beneath me trembled. I hesitated, glancing back. The figures swirled faster, their angry whispers rising to a cacophony. Whatever they were, I realized they weren't ready to let me go that easily. My choice would change everything. I needed to find the toy, and fast, before the shadows closed in again. And just like that, I took off toward the light, uncertain of what awaited me next. As I bolted toward the hill, my mind raced. What kind of toy could hold so much power over these shadows? I could feel their eyes on me, a weight of desperation pressing against my back. Fear clawed at my throat, but I couldn't falter. Not now. The beam of light led me through a patch of twisted trees, their gnarled branches stretching like skeletal hands. I stumbled over roots and uneven ground, the soft earth resisting my progress. Behind me, the shadows surged, a dark tide rising to reclaim me. I was thankful for the light that guided me, bright and unwavering, while ensuring I didn't lose my way. At the top of the hill, the beam revealed a small, weathered toy box half buried in the dirt. Its paint was peeling, and rust had begun to claim the metal latch. I recognized it. It was the kind of thing kids left behind after too many adventures. The thought made me pause. Could this really be Lily's toy? As I knelt down, my heart pounded in my chest. I brushed away the dirt and leaves. If this was it, this could save her. I tugged at the latch, but it wouldn't budge. Panic flared in my chest. I glanced behind, where the shadows writhed closer, their shadowy forms twisting into grotesque shapes. Something within me screamed that time was running out. "Help me, Lily," I shouted, my voice shaking. "I'm trying to find it." The air thickened around me, stifling and charged with anticipation. Then I heard the voice again, that sing-song whisper, now filled with an urgency that sliced through the panic. "Open the box!" I took a deep breath and gripped the latch harder.
Okay, I muttered, forcing down my fear. I needed to believe that this toy mattered. Maybe it was a symbol of hope. I yanked the latch with all my strength, feeling the metal strain against me. With a sharp click, it sprang open. Inside, the light flickered. I blinked against the brightness and gasped. The box wasn't filled with just any toys. It held a shimmering orb that pulsed gently, casting colorful rays across the grass. It felt alive, radiating warmth that soothed the chill in the air. I reached for it, entranced. Just as my fingers brushed the surface, the shadows closed in, their whispers turning into howls. "No! Give it back!" I froze, the orb glimmering like a distant star. This is Lily's?" I stuttered. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, sending me sprawling back. The shadows surged, their shapes morphing into something more defined
and terrifying. They advanced on me, hungry for that orb. I scrambled away, heart racing. "Find Lily!" The deep voice echoed again, sounding more urgent than before. "It connects you." I barely realized what I was saying next. "I've got to find her." It came out as a desperate plea, but I felt the orb tugging me forward. I didn't know where it would lead, but I couldn't stay here and face the shadows alone. Then everything went dark again. I was yanked from the hilltop and into a void, a swirling sea of shadows. But I clutched the orb tightly, feeling its warmth against my palm. I had to resist. I had to find a way to Lily and break this cycle. And just before my vision blurred completely, a flash of light sliced through the darkness. "Lily!" I shouted into the abyss, hoping my voice would reach her. In that moment, I realized I was still more than just a scared kid in a cemetery. I was part of something bigger, an unfolding story that I needed to complete. But would I have enough strength to see it through? Light returned suddenly, dazzling and disorienting. I winced as the brightness enveloped me, and when I finally managed to blink it away, I found myself standing in a familiar space. It was the cemetery, but everything seemed off-kilter. The trees swayed unnaturally, and the air buzzed with static, making my skin tingle. The orb in my hand pulsed steadily, its warmth grounding me. "Lily!" I shouted again, desperation fueling my voice. I wasn't sure where I was, but the connection to her felt stronger here. There was a pull deep inside me, urging me forward. Ahead, obscured by mist, I spotted a flicker of movement. My heart raced as I squinted, hoping against hope that it was her. "Lily!" I cried, taking a few tentative steps forward. The shadows lurked at the edges of my vision, whispering my fears back to me. But the orb seemed to act as a barrier, keeping them at bay. Suddenly, a cry pierced the stillness. "Help!" It was a distant voice, frantic and pained, echoing among the gravestones. My blood ran cold. That voice, it sounded like Lily. But as I rushed toward the source, the ground beneath me shifted again, blurring my path. I stumbled and was nearly knocked off my feet. This place felt alive, almost sentient. I fought to keep my balance, gripping the orb as if it were the only thing anchoring me to reality. The shadows stirred, growing more agitated, their howls shaking the very air around me. "Lily!" I yelled, pressing on, heart pounding with each step. "Where are you?" Multiple shadows blurred in and out of focus around me, forming seamless shapes that twisted and turned. I could feel their desperation and anger like a storm hanging over me. "You shouldn't be here," one of them hissed, almost too faint to hear. The orb in my hand reacted violently, glowing brighter, and I shielded my eyes as a wave of energy rippled outward. "Leave him alone," another voice cried, this one sharper and filled with authority. I turned, startled. A girl stood by a grave, her eyes fierce and bright. "Stay away from the light," she shouted at the shadows, brandishing something that glimmered in the dark. It looked like a smaller orb, quicksilver in color. "Who are you?" I asked, bewildered but grabbing on to the chance for help. "I'm here for you," she said, glancing at the advancing shadows with fear and fierce determination. "We need to make this right." "Is this Lily's toy?" I questioned, half expecting a denial. My heart sank as she shook her head. "It's a piece of her soul," she said, eyes wide. "You must find her before it's too late." The authority in her voice ignited a flicker of hope. But then the shadows lunged closer, darkness shifting like water. "We'll take it," they howled. "Go," the girl urged, pointing toward a larger tombstone in the distance. "That's where they keep her. Trust the light." With a renewed sense of urgency, I made my way to the stone, the orb glowing brighter against the encroaching darkness. The shadows shrieked, their haunting whispers mingling with the girl's urgent voice. But as I reached the gravestone, a new dread pooled in my stomach. In her own swirling shadows, I saw a shape forming. It wasn't Lily. It was a figure shrouded in darkness, and I realized with a sickening twist that something far more sinister awaited me at the end of this journey. I took a deep breath, fighting the wave of dread crashing over me as I stepped closer to the gravestone. The orb pulsed in my hand, warming me as if it sensed the danger approaching. "Lily!" I called out again, my voice trembling but resolute. "Where are you?" The shadows danced between the gravestones, taunting me with whispers that aimed to sow fear. "Leave this place," they hissed. "You don't understand." But I felt the call of something deeper, locked inside of me, the desire to save Lily, to lift the veil holding her captive. "Trust me," I shouted, my words echoing through the buzzing air. I pressed forward, determined to make sense of my surroundings, even as the figure in shadow unfurled in front of me. It stood taller than the others, its form shifting and swirling like a dark storm cloud, whispering secrets of pain and loss. "Stop!" it boomed, its voice echoing like thunder. It reached out, a mass of dread ready to crush me like a fragile leaf beneath its weight. But then, as if guided by an unseen hand, the orb in my grasp ignited, bursting forth with brilliant light that pushed against the encroaching shadow. The dark figure recoiled, and I seized the moment. "I'm here to help Lily!" I shouted, the words pouring from my lips. "What do you want?" The shadows writhed, forming into indistinct faces that mirrored their anger and fear. "She's ours!" they cried, their voices merging into a dissonant chorus. "You can't save her!" But just then, bright flickers of light erupted around me, creating a barrier against the darkness closing in. The girl, the one who had claimed to be here for me, stood beside me, braving the shadows even as they threatened to engulf us both. "You must believe! You must free her!" "Answer me!" I yelled, uncertainty and frustration bubbling to the surface. "What do you need from me?" Then the air shifted. A presence emerged from the swirling shadows, and I recognized the small girl's figure, Lily. She appeared momentarily as a shimmering silhouette, caught between two worlds. "Find me!" she shouted, her voice filled with longing. "I need my toy!" With my heart pounding, I recalled the orb still clutched in my hand, its warmth surging with promise. I opened myself to it, pouring in my intention and my fear, ready to confront whatever waited beyond. "Lily, I'm here," I pleaded, feeling adrenaline and empathy intertwine. "Let me help you." In that instant, a rush of clarity assailed me, and the shadows hesitated, their movement faltering as the light grew stronger. The major figure began fluctuating violently, its form swallowed by the light. Then came a shattering cry, like glass breaking, a sound so pure it pierced through the cacophony. "I'm here!" Lily's voice rang clearer, echoing like a clarion call. "I'm still here!" For a brief moment, time slowed, and the shadows stopped shifting, as if captivated by the very essence of her longing. I felt compelled to act, to risk it all.
Lily! I extended my arm, the orb sparkling like the sun, brighter than anything around us. Follow the light! Just as I unlocked the true intent of the orb within, the shadows surged, threatening to reclaim Lily. Panic coursed through me as I instinctively reached out, praying she could sense my determination. Suddenly, an earthly wind howled, swirling around us, carrying echoes of laughter and screams alike. The shadows strained against the force pushing them away, desperately clawing to drag me down into despair. With a surge of courage, I grabbed the orb and threw it toward the light I felt within me. "Take it!" I shouted, the words fragmented by fear and resolve. "Remember who you are!" The light exploded from the orb, blinding and brilliant, pushing against the darkness. I felt the weight of the past lifting, the shadows recoiling as a surge of warmth washed over me. The wails began to shift, fading into pleading whispers. In the unkindled glow, I caught sight of Lily, her figure coming into focus. "She needs my toy," she said, and I understood then that it wasn't merely about possession, it was about connection, even beyond death. The shadows screamed, they were losing their hold. "No!" they cried, fear rooting deep in their words. "She's ours!" With a final push, I centered the warmth of the orb and made one last standing declaration. I won't let you take her. In that electrifying moment, the shadows broke apart, falling back like leaves in autumn. I felt the air shift as light enveloped everything, and I could finally see Lily's bright smile amid the radiance. "Thank you," she whispered, and in that instant, the shadows folded away completely. The dark figures twisted and dispersed, their cries fading into silence. Just like that, the cemetery felt alive again, the trees no longer ominous, but welcoming. The heaviness of grief around me dissipated, leaving only a lingering echo of laughter. But as the light settled, so did an uneasy stillness. The question that remained pierced through the clarity. Was this truly the end? As I looked around, I knew Lily was free, yet I felt an unshakable tether to the mysteries of the cemetery, uncertain of the line that blurred between the living and the lost. "Where will you go?" I asked, half expecting her presence to linger. But she only smiled, the flicker fading into the light, that wide grin leaving behind an ache in my chest. "I'll always be here," she whispered, before dissolving into sparkling particles that danced on the breeze. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at her grave, still moving but swaying ever so lightly. I felt more than a little lost myself, my connection to her intertwining like the roots beneath our feet. I didn't know if I would return to this place, if curiosity or fear would pull me back. But as I walked out of the cemetery, the lingering warmth of Lily's presence imbued me with a new sense of purpose. Some questions remained unanswered, like the fate of the shadows or the nearby graves, but I accepted them as part of the unexplainable. I drove away, not quite ready to leave it all behind, my mind racing with thoughts about the intertwining of our spirits. There was a connection now, a shared understanding of a story still being written, no matter where our paths led. Sometimes, in the shadows and light, we discover ourselves in ways we never thought possible. I could still feel the magic in the air, reminding me to keep exploring, keep questioning. A sense of peace mixed with uncertainty followed me like an old friend as I made my way home.